Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and this is my episode of the Cases That Broke My Heart, where I'm talking to volunteers and advocates from all over the evacuation community about the hardest moments in the last 4 years that they've had to experience. So my first was one of the early ones. I had just started getting an influx of letters from Afghans who were in perilous situations in December of 2021, where they thought that they were going to immediately be found by the Taliban and killed, and they hadn't gotten out in the withdrawal. I was watching my daughter eat at the kitchen island, and she was so happy. It was the day after Christmas. And I was opening up my social media messages, expecting to find that the PDF document I was opening was just another set of SIV documents, Tazkira, etc. What I found instead were a bunch of pictures of this man's children. And they were all, in the beginning, pictures from before the fall. And it was his kids at their birthday parties with these elaborate outfits, beautifully done hair on his daughter with a crown, his son in a bow tie and a suit, beautiful cakes that were so finely made, balloons, all of these extravagant and gorgeous decorations. And it reminded me of how I celebrate my kids' birthdays and what I do when it's time to celebrate them. And then I saw the pictures from that day, and his kids were living in a tent, and they were standing outside of it. It was one of their birthdays, and they were holding a sign printed in like 80s style, old school printer paper that said happy birthday with a printout of a balloon on it. And their clothes they looked like dingy, and they'd been overwashed because they probably didn't get to bring many of their clothes to the tent that they escaped to after the Taliban came and murdered their dog and killed his best friend. And he was worried that they would soon die too. So it was such a stark contrast. And as I looked at my own daughter and thought about my own kids, I felt this compulsion that I had to do something. And the hard part of this story is that I couldn't help this man. So many people tried to help me get this man his SIV documents and be able to get COM approval. And at every possible step, we would get so close, and then the door would get slammed on us, and there was nothing I could do. And it was terrible. The other hardest moment came at what should have been such a happy time. I was talking to a family that had just finally been reunited with their son after being forced to leave him behind because the consular officer dealing with the SIV application for his dad had determined, independent of any actual information, that all of the dates of birth that the family provided for this child were wrong, and that he was in fact 1 year older and did not qualify for a derivative SIV. And so the family had to leave him behind. He was beaten in Afghanistan, had to flee to India as a refugee, where he was beaten again by roving bands of people who found out that he was going every week to go get money from his family to survive, because as a refugee you cannot work or go to school. And he had finally qualified for humanitarian parole, and he had been brought to the U.S., and the family was so elated to be back with him. But the mother was talking about, I asked her what it had been like when she had to come here without him, because I couldn't imagine what that feeling would be like as a mom. And I couldn't understand her because she was not speaking in English, but I could see it all over her body and her face, how hard it had been for her as she was sobbing. And her son said that she was telling me that they carried her dead body from Afghanistan. And I absolutely believed and understood that that was how it felt for her. And despite this joyous reunion, I was just so angry that our State Department could thank someone for their service and provide them an SIV and not realize the threat to their children and the pain that it would cause them to leave a child behind, even if he was 1 year different in age. The crazy thing, for humanitarian parole, the age that they brought him in on is the age that they said he wasn't on the derivative SIV. Just because there's a tiny bit of time left, I want to say that every time I've listened to HKIA veterans, it has absolutely gutted me too, because the things that they experienced at Hamid Karzai International Airport they beggar description, and they are horrifying. So many of those stories have brought me to tears and made me wish that there was just something I could do. And that's the whole thing here. All of these stories just kept me going and kept me trying to help. Tasha Kaur, thanks for listening. Hope to see you again soon.